Survivor here. Today I wanted to talk about the things we should do the night of the day before this upcoming election. When we reach the point that we're the day before the election, it's going to be too late to prep a lot of the things that we should have already prepped. So a lot of this is just going to be using a checklist to make sure that you have all the things you need to have on hand and possibly even make any last minute runs. So we want to already verify that we have 3 to 6 months worth of food, water, and water purification devices in our home. This is going to be extremely important because depending on how the election goes, our supply chains may very well be disrupted. Then it's very possible we're going to see food and supply shortages at a level we've never seen before. So if you're not already prepared, and not just your food and your water, start now. Don't wait until the last moment because the things are not going to be there in the stores. Remember the run on toilet paper a few months ago and cleaning supplies. It's going to be the same way this time. When we go to the stores the day before the election, I expect the shelves to be bare pretty much. So that's one of the things we need to have taken care of beforehand. Double check your bug out plan. No matter how secure your location is, it's unreasonable to think that it can withstand any assault. No matter how skilled you may be at combat, it's unreasonable to think you can hold off any assault that may come your way. And a bug out plan is extremely necessary in this type of situation. Make sure you have multiple routes that would get you out of town, avoiding the most highly congested areas. If you have a 4-wheel drive, then this does open multiple possibilities, cutting through, areas that you couldn't get through in a car. So ensure that not only do you have the plan, but the people that are with you, your family, your friends, whoever's going to be with you, they're also very familiar with this plan, as familiar with it as you are, with the multiple route, the meeting points, the final location in which you're trying to get to. Ensure that everyone understands this plan and knows how to enact it. Next is checking your vehicle. I would recommend having your vehicle packed and supplied the night before the election, although with the mail-in ballots, it may be a few days before we actually see a winner, if we see a winner at all in this election. So have your vehicle ready. I have my vehicle survival kit in mine, a really good set of tools in my vehicle, but I also carry my bug out bag everywhere I go now. I used to have a get home bag, a much smaller bag, but with everything that's going on, I opted for my actual bug out bag so that I would have all the supplies I need to survive, any situation that's survivable, basically. So have your vehicle ready. Have it topped off with gas. Make sure you've taken care of any nagging little nuisances your vehicle may have, any little mechanical problems that can be fixed. Fix those well before this date. Make sure your tires are good. Check your tire pressure, your oil, your fluids. Top off anything you need to top off. Make sure your vehicle is in tip-top running condition that it can be in for that particular vehicle, because if the election does go bad, if things do take a turn for the worse, which they're already headed that way, then you may have to leave at a moment's notice, and having supplies already in your vehicle is only going to benefit you. To respond to a comment I had a little while back on that same exact subject is, the comment was basically, this is overkill. You don't need any supplies in your vehicle. All you need is a knife and know how to survive. Well, yeah, that's true. But if I've got a big vehicle and I'm not going to drive off with it empty when I could have it loaded down with food, water, ammunition, and firearms. Of course, most people can survive in the woods with just a knife if the weather's nice. But you also have to keep in mind, if you're bugging out into the woods, unless you're in a very remote area, there's going to be a lot of other people there too. So I do recommend keeping the supplies. That's what we prep for. We don't prep to run into woods with a knife. We prep to run into the woods with our gear. Now, you should be able to survive with only your skills and basically a fixed blade knife. But we shouldn't have to unless it's absolutely necessary. That is why we prep. Another thing is to make sure you're financially prepared. To be financially prepared, for some people, for me, I'm not a rich guy, so it's not like I've got tens of thousands or millions of dollars in the bank that I can just go buy what I need. But I have attempted to pay my bills up for a couple of months ahead, and that's because if supply chains are disrupted and if my job is disrupted again, which I was lucky last time, but this time I know I wouldn't be so lucky, that at least I have the peace of mind that if I'm able to stay in my location, that I'm not going to have anyone knocking on the door next week kicking me out. So make sure your basic necessities are paid ahead. And that would be your rent, your power, your water, and gas if you use natural gas. Make sure that those are paid ahead so that you don't lose these services unless everyone loses these services. And the worst that happens there is nothing happens. Nothing happens at the election. Everything goes smooth, and now your bills are paid for a couple of months. So do that and make sure that you've taken care of the things that you can take care of like that. But also on the financial aspect, you're going to want to make sure that you have your documentation ready. And what I mean by that is any vehicle titles, any land deeds, anything like that, anything, documents that can prove you are who you say you are, that you own the properties you say you own, the vehicles, the land, etc. But have these documents and be prepared to take these documents with you. Because if you bug out from your home, then this is most likely a situation which you're not going back there for a very long time, if ever. So you're going to want to take this type of information with you. Also, money. Keep a little bit of money on hand for, incidentals, for gas to get you out of the particular area, for anything that you may need. As much as you can, but this is also limited to people's resources. Prepare your home. Now, home defense is a very touchy subject because there's a lot of things that can be done to protect the home, but if we look at the track record of the rioting that's been going on, they're looting a lot of buildings, but they're also burning a lot down. If they can't get in your home, then there's a very good possibility it's going to burn. You have to think like a criminal here, and you have to think about what they would do to get into your home to secure it. The best defense you can have is people. The more people you have on your side, the better chance you have of actually not even having to deal with an altercation. Strength in numbers, and that's true. The more people you have, then the less likely a gang of rioters is to come into your neighborhood and try and fight off everyone who's standing there armed. So have people on your side. Know your neighbors. In apartment buildings, this is going to be essentially important. In an apartment building, you're right next door to a lot of people, depending on how the size of the apartment building. But make sure that you know these people well enough to know if you could trust or rely on some of them to help you defend, or if you could not. And this is just all going to be personal judgment at this point. But there is strength in numbers, and the more people you have on your side, the safer you will be. If you have firearms, make sure your firearms are cleaned, well oiled. Make sure that you have already trained with them, that you're very familiar. You know your weapon like you know the back of your hand, because your weapon is your form of self-defense when it comes down to it. If you haven't trained with your weapon, then I'm not going to say it's useless, because a weapon is never useless, but it's going to be less effective. A lot of times it's noticeable. You can see when someone picks up a firearm for the first time. You can see when someone shoots a rifle for the first time. It's pretty obvious when you're watching this. As an experienced shooter, you can tell those who know what they're doing, who have trained at it, and those who rarely pick up a firearm and use it. So make sure that you are capable of using your firearm, and make sure you're mentally ready to use your firearm. Medical supplies. This is something that, once again, we're not going to be able to get all of this the day before the election, and that's why I wanted to talk about it now. And it's important to start putting this type of thing together. I understand that there are a lot of people who rely on daily medication to simply keep living, and this is going to be difficult for those. So especially if they're strapped for money, because it's not always easy to go pay for 2 months prescriptions ahead of time. But we do have to take this into account. And if you are someone who does take, basically life-saving medication that keeps you alive, then plan for this. Put a lot of thought into this right now. And you may even have to divert some resources to try and stock up a little ahead on this medication. But for those who do not take it, then, first aid supplies are going to be extremely important. See a lot of kits that are, gunshot wound heavy kits, IV bags and things like that, and that's great. It all has its place. But don't forget the little stuff. Don't forget the Band-Aids. Don't forget the antibiotic ointments. Don't forget the ibuprofen, pain reliever, fever reducer, cold medicine. It is getting to be winter, and the election is on November 3rd, so it's going to be cold weather then, and especially shortly after, depending on where you live. So make sure you have your standard, not just first aid for treating severe injuries, but your standard basic supplies for helping with common ailments like the common cold, persistent cough, things like that. Antacids is very important, especially if your diet is changing to survival foods as opposed to home-cooked meals. You're going to need some antacids. This stuff doesn't always digest well. If you ate a lot of it, then you know what I'm saying. Make sure that you have plenty of batteries Make sure you have plenty of, if you use solar panels, make sure that your solar panels are capable of charging the devices you have. I mean, a lot of people will buy like solar panels, little portable ones, and put them in a closet. Make sure that you know how to use these. Make sure they work properly, because I've bought many solar panels online and get them, I plug them in and I use them, and they just simply don't work. So test these devices out, ensure they're working. Make sure you have a supply of candles, emergency candles for if the power does go out, but also to keep the lighting down. If the power is not out, when it's night, you're not going to want to light up your entire house by turning on the overhead lights and the porch light and things like that. It'll be a lot more beneficial, if it's possible for you, to use candles in your home at night. And this is mainly to prevent you from standing out. If you're in an area and your house has lights on and the lights are off in the other areas, you've just made yourself a target. So use candles and use devices, oil lamps, things like this that put off enough light that you can function in the home, but also don't put off enough that they draw unwanted attention to your location. The day of the election and the days after, the clothing you wear is going to make a difference. Make sure you wear clothing that you would be comfortable bugging out in. And I know this seems very petty or whatever. It may not even seem important to some people. But, you know, you don't want to bug out if it happens to be a warm day and you've got a pair of shorts on. Do you really want to bug out with just those shorts on? Do you want to be on the run like that? Wear clothing that you would feel comfortable in a survival situation in. You know, of course, I'm not saying wear your body armor and all that everywhere you go, but, you know, might be a good idea to keep it in your vehicle. But wear clothing and shoes that you could immediately dart off into a location, say in the woods or somewhere that you're unfamiliar with, and you would be warm, and this clothing could help protect you. Pay very close attention to the news the night before, the day of, and thereafter. I know we are basically overwhelmed with a lot of what's called fake news these days, and the news has become more of an opinionated talk show than it is an actual newscast for the most part. So it can be hard to sort truth, but when you're seeing pictures of people rioting, buildings burning, there's not a whole lot of debate as to what's going on there. We know what's going on, and if that's in your area, you really need to be aware of it. So pay particular attention to the news. Keep a radio on hand, and keep preferably like a hand crank or solar power radio, an emergency type of radio. And make sure that you pay attention to what's going on around you, situational awareness. When we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, then we very well may fall victim due to the fact that we just simply did not know the rioters were coming into our area. So those are things that we should do now, but we want to check off and make sure that we have all this in place the night before the election. I don't expect the election day itself to be as chaotic as what's going to happen the days after, and that's because of all the mail-in ballots this year. So it'll be several days after the election before we may actually know a clear-cut winner, and that's when we can expect it. But we want to be ready. We want to be prepared. I mean, that's why we do this for, is to be prepared if it does happen. So just wanted to touch on some things that you want to check off that night before, things you want to make sure that you've done. Don't overlook anything. Make sure that your family's taken care of. Well, I hope the video helps out. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless. And for now, Serious Survivor, out.